Hi, this is Charlie Kimbell. I'm the state representative for Woodstock, Reading, and Plymouth, otherwise known as Windsor 5. And I'm here with an update on what's going on in the legislature. And the issue that's dominating the legislature this session is the education transformation proposal that was made by Governor Scott and delivered by Secretary of Education Zoe Saunders. And it has four major components. One is changing the governance structure, so that in the state right now we have 52 supervisory unions and 119 school districts. This proposal is to eliminate supervisory unions altogether and move to 5 school districts. So that's a huge change from where we are now. That's the first. The second is to change how we deliver education, and that is how big are our class sizes, and to go to an increased minimum size, up to 25 students if you're in 4th grade and above, up to 12, and I think it's 12 students if you're below, so pre-K through 3rd grade. A third part is how do we fund it? And we're talking about the foundation formula that would deliver to school districts how much they were allotted to spend for the students that they had enrolled based on what the estimates are of educating a student in Vermont. And that's creating a base formula, taking a base, and then multiplying it by different weights that are applied to students that need additional instruction or facilities, and then multiplying that times the pupil count, and that comes up with the amount a school district would have. So that's a radical change from what we're doing now in the state. Right now we're doing it with every school district is voting on their school budget and approving it, and then sending that bill to Montpelier to say, this is what we have agreed to spend. Now we have to fund it through some mix of property taxes and also sales and use tax, purchase and use tax, and those other things that go into the fund. And the fourth thing, there's a part of this in terms of school delivery, you have to figure out what is the complexity, or the complexion, I should say, of our schools in delivering this education to our new student body. And there has to be some kind of realignment, because the minimum size of a school, 650 students in a high school, 450 students in a middle school and elementary school, we can't meet those sizes right now in many of the districts in Vermont. We can in some schools in Chittenden County, but certainly in the southern parts of the state we can't. So there are some incredibly large changes that are being proposed, and this was all on the idea that we were spending too much on our property taxes, and people were objecting to how much they had to spend on their property taxes, and they're right. Remember Woodstock, we had a reduction or an increase of 30% on our property taxes in fiscal year 2025, the one they're currently in. And voters just can't handle it anymore. They're saying, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. So what are they going to do? Are they going to move? Or are they going to try to figure out how else to fund education? So that's what we're trying to do, is to provide some kind of property tax relief. So the solution really in the short run is for a couple of years, until we can achieve some kind of cost savings through structural change, is that we'll have a temporary buy down in that property tax rate using money from the general fund or from some one-time surpluses that will artificially lower that cost in our education fund for a couple of years. And at the end of that 2 years, we have to figure out what that's going to look like. So that's what the legislature is doing this session, is try to figure out what the plan is from today until like 10 years from now, because that's how long it's going to take to affect a lot of the changes proposed by the governor and a lot of the changes that the legislature agrees with. But there are a lot of details in there that have to be worked out, and that's what that plan is going to come up with. Now, how much should we be spending per student? What are the formulas or what are the assumptions used to come across that cost? I'll give you an example. Right now, that proposed base spending is $13,200 per student. And the actual cost of educating a student in Vermont is over $20,000. So that base, remember, is affected by those weights as to which students need additional instruction or facilities. And so the actual, using that base, might be close to $20,000. But, And here's the thing that makes this really interesting. If you use what the governor is assuming of the efficiencies that can be achieved, then that compared to where we currently are is a drastic difference in not just $183 million in savings, which he's proposing, but let's put it in the context of people. Right now we have a staff or student to staff ratio in Vermont schools of 4.38 to 1. So that's how many staff members we have for every student in schools. Now, if you take that and compare it to where the governor's proposal is, that goes to 8.83 students per staff member. Roughly, well, half, depends on how you think of it. So if you look at the statistics, take 83,000 students in the state of Vermont, divide it by that student to staff ratio, that means that you come up with about 19,000 staff members currently. And that actually squares with what the Agency of Education reports for 2024, about 19,500 staff people in the schools. Now, if you take that same ratio, staff to student, and use the governor's proposal of 8.83, that comes out to about 9,400 staff members. We're going from 19,000 down to 9,400, just a little over half of a cut in the number of staff positions. We can't handle that right now without significant impacts on the delivery of services and students and the quality of education for our youth. So how are we going to get there? It's not going to look exactly what the governor's proposed because it's very hard to imagine that we can do what we're doing now with half the number of people in our schools. Yes, there are places where we can be more efficient. Yes, there are things that we could do better and provide even a better education for students, but not that drastically and not in 2 years. So that's what we're working on. It's a plan to get us from where we are now to get us to what that future state looks like. And that's going to be not just next year or the year before, but 5 years and 10 years down the road. So stick with us as we work through the education transformation plan that not only the governor's proposed, but what Vermonters are asking for too in terms of cost efficiencies and opportunities for their own students. Thanks again, and stay tuned with further updates from the legislature in this 2025 session. This is Charlie Kimbell signing off from Woodstock. Thank you.